What's going on, guys? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with another live stream. Happy to have you all with us yet again. Today's live stream.
And here I am too.
Exactly. Here's my brother joining us. As you can see, this stream is going to be going through all the failings that we believe have happened under Enic and Daniel Levy's tenure in the 20 years they have been in charge. And we're going to be detailing where we think their main failures have been. We're going to be going in chronological order, year by year. We're going to be looking at what we think some of their biggest failings have been and why. And maybe you can get a kind of glimpse as to why we are so now on the side where we want Enic out of this club.
Look, for years and years, benefit of the doubt after benefit of the doubt after benefit of the doubt, where people around us were starting to wake up and smell the coffee. I mean, we knew of the failings of Enic. We did know about them, but we gave them the benefit of the doubt because of the great business acumen that they have done, the great work that they have done off the pitch, because you can't get away from the fact that in terms of the business side of the club, they're probably the best in the league. They probably are. You can't say anything apart from that. But at the end of the day, we're a football club. And you need to care what happens on the pitch as opposed to just off the pitch as well. And we've got a long list to get through. Obviously, they took over in 2001, buying the club for 22 million off Alan Sugar at the time. And now it is worth over 2 billion or something.
Yeah,
or 1 billion
the
at
club is
least.
worth a lot of money. And that's fair enough. And they have built it up in that way. But we're a football club, aren't we? And that's first and foremost.
Got a comment from Marcelo saying, "I'd argue that, Ben."
What
would you argue, Marcelo? Let us know. Let us know in the comments. What would you argue, Marcelo? Because I'm not sure what you're talking about there. But look, we got another comment here saying we are Depression TV. We definitely are at the moment with the state the club is. I'm not going to lie. Marcelo saying the business side. He wants to argue the business side.
What you would argue? You would argue that they haven't been good business wise, but they have been. I think
it's a fact. I think it's a fact. I don't think from where we were in 2001, obviously they bought the club for 22 million and they're saying the club is worth over $1 billion now, maybe even 2 billion.
Well, they have had a few failures from a business side. In truth, they have had a few. They've done well in terms of the club, the business in the club. In terms of business footballing decisions, haven't always been the wisest, and they've spunked a lot of money away.
When I talk about business decisions, I'm talking about off the pitch. I'm talking about all that kind of stuff. They've taken us as a club in stature. We've grown in stature massively since they've taken over in 2001. But we're here to talk about the failings on the pitch and why we think Enic should go. So let's start off. Sim, what have you got for me?
Yeah, so we'll start off in 2002. Enic are looking to make a statement signing. There are rumours we're going for Rivaldo. I remember he said he was looking to sign for Spurs, but he chose AC Milan instead. We've got Samuel Eto'o, who dedicated a goal to Tottenham Hotspur in a match against England, I believe. He scored a goal, dedicated it to Tottenham Hotspur. We couldn't get that deal over the line. Those can be overlooked, but one of them that was very detailed back in 2002 was a deal to sign Fernando Morientes.
Yeah.
Now that deal was done at a fee that both agreed by Tottenham and by Real Madrid for Fernando Morientes back in 2002 to join Tottenham Hotspur, and it's well documented. The Morientes, I'm not sure, the Madrid, I'm not sure if it was his chairman or who it is.
I've got it here, and it's the Madrid sporting director at the time. George Valdano was in conversation with Levy. The deal was done for 8.9 million for Morientes to come to Tottenham Hotspur. It was going to be a massive marquee signing at the time for Glenn Hoddle. And the deal was done. The deal was completely done. Daniel Levy calls up Valdano in the last hour and goes, "Oh, can I pay you this over 10 years?" And Valdano immediately hung up the phone. The deal was dead. And that was it. And that was the first of very many times this happened in the 20 years under Daniel Levy. So far, that is so far.
Yeah, I just want to add as well, we are going in chronological order from when they took over. And if any of you feel like we've missed anything from the year that we're talking about, then please do put it in the comments, or put it in a super chat or in a tweet or whatever you want, and let us know anything else that you think we've missed. But we're going to be going through some of the failings we've identified, and we think have been one of the serious failings of Enic's tenure. So if you do think we've missed anything, then do let us know.
Just back to the conversation we're having with Marcelo, he's come back to say that Enic had made some shocking business. Marketing-wise, yes, but transfer-wise and branding-wise, I disagree. Look, I think that in terms of what you're saying is not wrong. It's not wrong at all. But I think it's purely based on where we were as a club, where they took us over, and where we are now. And that shows a great business acumen, in my opinion.
Yeah, but they have made a series of
of course,
bad decisions when it comes to transfers and stuff. But in terms of how they've built the club up, yeah, I don't think anyone could disagree with what they've done. But you can definitely have big disagreements on how they run the football club, and that's what we do. Sticking in 2002, Tottenham signed Cubo in an attempt to capitalise on the Asian market. Do you know how many times did Cubo play for Tottenham?
0.
I believe so. He didn't play at all. Cubo, retired footballer. He made 0.
He played in a pre-season when he was on trial, and that was it. And then when he came properly, he never played again.
Yeah, he's not even mentioned as being playing for Spurs, but he definitely either had a trial. I don't know if he was part of the squad, but he definitely joined Tottenham at one point.
He joined Tottenham under Glenn Hoddle, yeah.
He had a month-long stint with them before he apparently left due to a lack of a work permit. Then going into 2003, we sacked Glenn Hoddle at the beginning of the season and appointed David Pleat for pretty much the whole of the season back in 2003, kind of steady the ship. He was caretaker manager and led to an awful season pretty much.
Signed Jermaine that summer, didn't we?
We did sign Defoe, but we signed him in January. Swap deal with Zamora. We also signed Postiga from Porto for £8 million, who turned out to be a big flop.
And then goes on to knock out England in the Euros.
Exactly. Selling him a year later for a significant loss.
Back to the same club.
Yeah, back to Porto. We also signed Kazuyuki Toda on a 6. I think it was a 1-year loan.
In another attempt to capture that Asian market.
And how many appearances did Kazuyuki Toda make for Spurs? I believe 3 appearances.
3? Is that? I thought less.
I believe it says here 3. Yeah, 4. Apparently 4 appearances Toda made for Tottenham. And that's that one. Again, another deal that didn't work out, and another deal that definitely was all about the money. So appointing David Pleat, who was a very old, he was sporting director at the time.
He
was, but he was. Did he have the minerals to be a caretaker manager over such a long period? I don't think they get enough flack for that. They literally went a whole season without appointing a manager. They just literally went with David Pleat to the end of the season, and we end up finishing 14th, just about staving off relegation near the end of the season. So that was a bit lucky. 2004, we hire France manager Jacques Santini, who just fresh off the Euros. He was manager of France,
along with Arneson as well,
and Frank Arneson as sporting director. They fell out, so Santini resigned after 13 games. So that was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, but they got lucky. They struck lucky because they brought in Martin Jol at the same time as assistant manager.
Assistant, exactly.
And they struck lucky because Martin Jol took the job straight away and he kind of flourished in the role.
Yep, exactly. And so Martin Jol kind of took the team and...
Did Martin Jol take it over as caretaker, or did he go straight into the job?
He took over as caretaker initially.
And then everyone seemed to love him, and then he gave him a job.
Exactly. That did work out for a bit. We did improve over that period when Martin Jol was in charge. The next summer, though, we had a few good signings. We signed Leon Pio, Jermaine Genus, trying to improve the squad, but we needed another striker, and we signed Gregors Raziak on deadline day. Another awful signing.
Yeah, I mean, that was a panic buy at his best. And we signed him off Derby, was it? And I remember him making his debut against Liverpool, and he had that goal disallowed offside. Mm-hmm. And if that
was a corner, that
he actually played really well that game, and then he never played well again ever.
Yep. Agreed. And that was another signing which didn't work out. We obviously, the Lasagna game, I'm not going to put that on Levy, but we had a solid season that season. But the next season we did, again, classic Spurs. You have a good season, you have builds momentum, you have a good feeling,
and throw it all away.
and then you kind of just we don't push forward. Next summer, we sold Michael Carrick for 18 million. We replaced him with Didier Zakora for 7 million. And although we did sign Dimitar Berbatov that summer as well, we did kind of stagnate during that season, ending up 5th place, but a lot further away from 4th than we were the season before, despite the fact that we had a couple of good signings in Berbatov, and Steed Malbronk joined as well. But it wasn't really good enough to push on, having sold such an important player, Michael Carrick, not adequately replacing him.
Yeah.
The following season, we signed Darren Bent for 16 million, having already Defoe, Robbie Keane and Dimitar Berbatov already at the club. So we're literally wasting money on a 4th choice striker for big money when that money could have been spent elsewhere, which was really perplexing. We did also sign young Gareth Bale in that summer, and we signed a Yunus Kawalk, and we signed troublemakers in Kevin Prince Boateng and Adel Tarabt.
As
well.
It's important to note with the Gareth Bale deal as well how they did take advantage of cash-strapped Southampton at the time. I don't think we ended up paying a fee, or we paid a very, very significantly less fee.
We initially agreed for 10 million and we ended up paying 5, I believe, and we gave them Tommy Forecast, I believe, the keeper in return for that. But yeah, so that was a big waste of money. Signing Darren Bent, I felt, when we had that strike force. Then, after a poor start to the season, a lack of class by Daniel Levy after he was courting Juan de Ramos. I remember, I think it was even it might have been even in the summer. He was courting Ramos.
Is this before he got sacked?
This is before he sacked Martin Jol. Those rumours came out, and then he obviously very famously sacked Martin Jol at half time, which was absolutely despicable behaviour for a manager who served us really well. I actually wasn't, but I was watching on TV at the time.
Mate, I was there that day, and you could feel the emotion in the stadium, because obviously Martin Jol was an absolute fan's favourite. He was a fan's favourite because he got us back on he was the one that started our upward trajectory as a football club, in terms of on the pitch. And the day he sacked Martin Jol at home to Getafe at half time was absolutely shocking. I mean, you could see nobody cared about that game after the half-time.
You would say...
Nobody cared. Everyone was singing for Martin Jol for the whole game.
You would say as well that at that time, sacking Martin Jol at half-time, yes, there was some bad feeling around, like Enic weren't exactly overall loved, but there wasn't massive amounts of negativity towards them. And that was apart from obviously selling Carrick, that was the first time there was serious negativity directed towards Enic and the board about how they're running the club and what kind of people they are when they're sacking managers, of especially popular managers like Martin Jol at half time that.
Every
Such a lack
single
of class.
person in that stadium, every single person watching the game, every single person pretty much apart from him knew he was sacked. Everyone knew it was sacked except for him. What sort of guy sacks someone at half time, especially someone that was so revered by the fans and someone loved within the
Just
club?
Lack of respect.
He was like a father figure within the club. The players loved him. The fans loved him. Well, I don't know if the players at the time loved him, but he was loved. He was a loved guy. And to treat him like that was disgraceful.
Yeah, and that was the first time people got the feeling that, okay, these Enic people aren't maybe the best in terms of dealing with football on the footballing side and dealing with those sorts of situations. How can you not know that you can't just sack a manager at half time and that be acceptable, especially one who's done so much for the club? So that was a serious failing of dealing with the situation from Enic and Daniel Levy.
Got a comment here from Bob Spur TV saying, can anyone remember how the Jol sacking became public during the game? An inside leak.
I don't know how.
It's an interesting question. Just Sky Sports got a wind of it, didn't they?
Yeah, I think. And then I was watching on ITV, I think, and then they got wind of it.
ITV got a wind of it. Someone got a wind of it.
I think there was breaking news at the time because it was obviously well documented that we were going for Juan de Ramos, and I think it was breaking news at the time. We had. Maybe broken the clause for Ramos, and I think it all came out at half time. All this news was breaking, and then it pretty much became public knowledge that Martin Jol was going to get the sack.
I just remember it so clearly. I was sitting in the Park Lane lower, and people just started talking. Everyone just started talking. Everyone getting text on their phone. It was before the mobile internet days. You had to get a text, not WhatsApp, a text to kind of get anything inside the stadium, and signal wasn't great as well, but it just once one person got it just filtered through the whole stadium, and that's all anyone was talking about. And everyone everyone in that stadium was standing up, singing "Stand Up" for Martin Jol, and he was class. That guy, he was absolutely
by the board.
Yeah, but Martin Jol was just top class. He was the one that knew what it meant to be a Tottenham manager, and he was a Tottenham fan as well. He grew up a Tottenham fan, I know, from Holland, and I know right now in his house he's still got a framed picture of him squaring up to Arsene Wenger in his house.
Love that. He was loved. He was a legend, and unfortunately, maybe things didn't go well the latter stages of his time at Spurs. But you can't sack him at half time during a game like that. So disrespectful.
Give the man the class he deserves. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So then we appointed Juan de Ramos. Obviously, he did win us the League Cup, despite also having a really poor end to the season. We finished 11th. We then
2 points from 8 games.
Yeah, so then we then signed David Bentley for 70 million after we already had Aaron Lennon in the squad, so we already had one of the best right wingers in England at the time, and we signed David Bentley for an extra 17 million. When again, that money probably could have been used better elsewhere, especially in the striking department. When you consider this is one of the worst summers we've ever had, because we sold Robbie Keane for 20 million to Liverpool. We sold Berbatov on deadline day to Man United, and we replaced them with Pavlyuchenko for 14 million on deadline day, and we replaced him with a loan deal for Fraser Campbell. From Man United. We got him in the deal that saw Berbatov go to Man United, and that was a real kick in the teeth. I remember the time. That was one of the worst deadline days. I remember when seeing Fraser Campbell.
I didn't even heard of Fraser Campbell.
I was like, oh my god, we've been had with this deal. Like, they're literally giving us one of their youth players on loan, and that's supposed to be replacing one of our star strikers.
And this is Dimitar Berbatov, who was the best player in the Premier League at the time. Yep. Literally, the guy oozed class. The guy was absolutely insane for us. What a player, Dimitar Berbatov. Those years at Tottenham, man, was something special from him.
And I understand those players want to leave and whatever. We did sell them for decent fees at the time, but to only sign them, there was literally no foresight to who we were going to bring in. We signed Pavlyuchenko, who, let's be honest, we only really signed him off the back of that Euros he had, because he had a decent Euros. Like, no one probably knew who he was before then. We signed him on for 14 million, which was not cheap at the time, but it was definitely overpaying for a striker who didn't have much pedigree. We definitely should have been more ambitious. And then obviously Fraser Campbell was a horrendous deal. And then we had Darren Bent at the time already at the club, but he was 4th choice last season. All of a sudden he's 1st choice, and that's exactly kind of where we were at. We had with such good options up front. All of a sudden our 4th choice striker is our 1st choice striker, just moving backwards all the time.
But how many times throughout the tenure has this happened?
Oh, we'll go
how many
through
times?
We are going to go through
I mean,
that.
It's just like that was like the start of what's going to happen every year, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so we end up having a horrific.
To be honest, though, I loved Pav. By the way, I loved.
Yeah,
Pav.
but let's be honest. He wasn't even better than Darren Bent. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't. He wasn't as good. Like, if he was there when Berbatov, Keane, and Defoe were there, he's 4th choice, right? So we went from a 4th choice striker to who being our 1st choice.
I know.
We're just going backwards.
I know, but I did like him as a player. I think he was underrated.
There was nothing about Pav being good enough or not. Well, it is a bit about that, but he wasn't good enough.
He was important for us in that run-in to the Champions League under Redknapp.
He was. He stepped up in a crucial period, but let's be honest, he was never consistent. He was never as good as those other strikers we had, and that's why we ended up spending a lot of money re-signing Defoe and Robbie Keane after we sold them. Obviously,
what sticks in your mind when you hear about Pavlyuchenko? What goal?
The goal that sticks in my mind when I hear about Pavlyuchenko, I'm trying to remember.
Because he scored some classy goals for us.
Yeah, I remember on the last day of the season against Birmingham, he scored 2 crackers when we won 2-1.
Remember that free kick against Rubin Kazan?
Yeah, he scored a great free kick against Rubin Kazan. I remember that in Europa League. That was in one of his last games for us, or maybe one of his last goals. Inter Milan, Simon Cohen. Yep, I agree with that. That's definitely a goal that sticks out of my mind. I'm trying to remember if he scored. He got that last minute winner against Liverpool. I remember he got that one as well. That was quite good. But anyway, I think signing Pavlyuchenko was a quick fix because we had a good Euros and we thought we'd capitalise on that. But actually, I don't think he was any that great.
It was a move to appease the fans as well, because everyone was watching the Euros and he obviously had a very good Euros, and he was a name that was kind of like very hot in the world of football at that time.
He was kind of exactly. It was he was not stylish, but he was current kind of player.
Yeah.
To be a player that he had just done well recently. So, but I do think that it was another deal which lacked a bit of ambition.
Yeah, that's true. Steve Lee says, regards to Pavlyuchenko, if you remember, we wanted our Shavin.
Yep. Yeah, we did want Arshavin, although not like he did amazing Arsenal. We did pretty well.
4 goals at Anfield.
Yeah, but we did want Arshavin.
He was a good player, Arshavin, but he also had a similar thing to Pavlyuchenko where he just couldn't be arsed sometimes.
Yeah, true. And then obviously we had 2 points from 8 games. We sacked Honor Ramos probably fairly, hired Harry Redknapp, which was actually a good appointment, which I give props to Levy for, because I did think at the time it's what we needed. We had a big January as well because we were still, despite Harry Redknapp coming in, there were still lingering doubts about relegation. So we spent a lot of money, and fair enough, we put our money where our mouth was at that time, only because maybe we were worried getting relegated. So we didn't want to lose out on that money. So we signed Keane, we signed Defoe, we signed Palacios. We signed a few, so for big money, spent some money in that.
Palacios
January.
was a big signing then. I know it wasn't a big name signing, but he came in and did a job that we really needed at the time.
Yeah, so fair enough. Then going into the next year, we delist Spurs. The Enic delist Spurs from the stock exchange, so forcing the fans to sell all their shares that they have in the club,
which let me buy my first season ticket. So they gave me money, and I gave it straight back to them.
Exactly. So in that summer wasn't the most high spending summer. We signed Crouch, Basong, and Nico Cranshaw, probably some of Harry Redknapp's boys, and then obviously we did end up having a very good season, finishing top 4. And so having spent a lot of money in January, and then so not that money, I can understand not spending that much money in 2009. And we had a good season, so fair play. But the big failing of this one was after we secured top 4, which was a big achievement. We own. Over the next 2 transfer windows. So I remember this time, it was like, once we get top 4, we're going to attract the best players. That's why we're so desperate. Top 4 was like everything. That's
what top 4 was about.
Yeah, top 4 was everything for us at that time. Yeah. I remember, what was that cringy song? One Love or something. The punchline was, top 4s are everything. Like that's how much top 4 meant to a lot of these fans. Like, they were making those cringy songs about it. And then we get top 4 finally. And over the next 2 years, we have a net profit of 9 million in the transfer window. A net profit after fighting so long to get Champions League. You're thinking you need to push on from that. And obviously, in that first transfer window after Champions League, we signed Gallas on a free. We then signed a young Sandro.
And I remember though, a lot of Spurs fans were up in arms with that Gallas transfer. Obviously,
they were.
It was Arsenal and Spurs, ex-Arsenal and Spurs.
And then we didn't sign anyone else, even though we definitely needed reinforcements to improve the team. We didn't sign anyone else but Van der Vaart on deadline day. Just after after the deadline, we signed Rafa Van der Vaart, which was a good signing. But in all honesty, once you get Champions League football, you thought we were really going to push on in the transfer market and actually go out a bit and actually spend some big money and improve the team properly. And yes, we got Van der Vaart on deadline day, but there were definitely other areas we needed to strengthen badly. And again, it was a case of Enic resting on their laurels, us getting Champions League, and we desperately needed a striker, and we didn't get one in. And that's why we fell back to 5th the next season after Man City had a big summer with all their money, and we dropped behind. That was a very big frustration for me at the time. I remember the next summer, again, you want us to push on. We did end up having a good season. To be fair, we did hold on to Modric. And we only signed Parker and Adebayor on deadline day. So we pretty much spent a whole summer not signing anyone. But again, it was deadline day deals. But to be fair, those 2 players did do well for us on that season. However, coming into January of that season, we're in a title race. We're 5 points behind Man City and Man United in a title race.
We just had that game at the Etihad, right? Or that game was then in January or in February or something? I think it was in
January. I'm not sure if we just had it or it was coming up. But Harry Redknapp was well documented that he went to Daniel Levy and said, look, we can really challenge for this. If we get a couple of serious recruits in this January window, we can really seriously go on to challenge for this title. He said he wanted Gary Cahill, who was available from Bolton, and the only other interested party was Chelsea, who were actually well below us in the league at the time. So he actually might have been interested in coming to us if we went for it. And we wanted Carlos Tevez, who apparently Man City were willing to let go because he was in a fight with Mancini after refusing to play and all that, and apparently he was made available and we could have got him. And Daniel Levy instead decided to say, no, we're not going to sign those players, and instead went for a deadline day deal for Louis Saha, 33 years old, and Ryan Nelson, who was 35, and that's who we went for instead. So he went for a cheap deal with not much outlay, and Tottenham ended up crumbling near the end of that season, obviously falling away to the title race.
That was the season when we were 12 points above Arsenal, right? And then they got it back. Which was
so we fell away with the title race. Not only did we fall out of the title race, we fell out of top three, which was with Chelsea winning the Champions League. We needed top three to secure Champions League football, and that was a big failing of that season. Again, resting on our laurels, not pushing on where we really needed that investment. That season as well, we attempted to take the Olympic Stadium. We were challenging West Ham for the Olympic Stadium. We were putting a really strong proposal, and we were very serious about moving the club to Stratford, despite protests from the fans, because it would have been probably a cheaper and more affordable to move to the Olympic Stadium.
That is also something that Spurs fans should never forget. Should never forget how they tried to move us to Stratford. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine going to home games in Stratford, in that London stadium, taking binoculars to a game every single week? Come on. Never forget that these guys tried to move us out of Tottenham. Oh, would our name still be Tottenham Hotspur if we were playing in Stratford?
I don't know. And it's a horrific stadium as well, and I can't believe they actually attempted to move us there. And they nearly got away with it if it wasn't for West Ham keeping the Olympic track around the stadium, which pretty much won it for them. Keeping that Olympic legacy, which we said we were going to tear down, basically. Yeah. So that's pretty much what got them over the line, and that was pretty lucky from that point of view. Obviously, we did end up finishing fourth at the end of that season. We ended up sacking Harry Redknapp again, another decision which was controversial.
Yeah, but that had a story to it, you know what I mean? Because Harry Redknapp was going for the England job, and he also had that court case at the same time.
The not guilty of
money laundering court case, which he got found not guilty of. Daniel Levy goes up to Harry Redknapp and I think offers him a new contract. Redknapp rejects it because he's going for the England job and he thinks he's got the England job, and he was everyone's favourite. He was everyone's man for the England job. Harry Redknapp rejected it, and I think Harry Redknapp, after he didn't get the England job, asked Daniel Levy, "Oh, you know what? I'll sign that contract now," and he said no, and he told him to go away. Basically, that was the story behind it. But it's hard. I mean,
in terms of
if I was Levy, I would have just signed Harry Redknapp up, because he's going for the England job at the end of the day. An England job is the be all and end all for an England manager, isn't it? English manager.
I didn't hold it against Redknapp. I did hold it against him a bit because we did fall away, but I don't think it was totally his fault that we fell away at the end of that season. I did think if we really had some serious investment in that January, we could have really pushed on. And he would look, in terms of performance, he'd finished fourth, fifth, and fourth in the league, which was a big overachievement for us at the time, and he'd done really, really well. So sacking him at the time, especially bringing in AVB, who had just failed badly at Chelsea, despite obviously doing well at Porto, was a very odd decision, and one which ultimately over the long term backfired, I felt. In that summer again, we sold Luka Modric to Real Madrid for 33 million, and the number one replacement was supposed to be João Moutinho, who really, really wanted it. It was AVB's number one, and we finally agreed a deal for Moutinho on deadline day, and yet we delayed too long and missed the deadline to sign him.
The fax machine broke, right?
The fax machine or something ridiculous. We actually agreed a deal for João Moutinho, but a classic Levy, leaving it to the last second, missed the deadline, and we ended up never getting him.
And, you know, this is it's just classic how the transfer window, every summer transfer window, you know, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens until the last week, basically. And then you start hearing all the rumours, and then they're scrapping around to get something through in the last day every single time. Single time, and we miss out on so many targets because of it.
Yep. And that was another way we missed out. So frustrating when you think about it. How can you miss a deadline? You got the whole month to bloody sign the player, and you have to leave it to the last second where you miss the
every
deadline.
Time.
And that's part of Daniel Levy's brinkmanship, as always. We ended up finishing fifth that season, just about missing out on top four by a point on the last day, where if we had a player like Moutinho, who knows what would have happened in that case. Then move on.
Although Moutinho was nothing on Luka Modric, though.
I think a young Moutinho. I'm not saying he was better than Modric, but a young Moutinho was a seriously good player. He
Yeah.
went to Monaco, and he was very good for Monaco.
No, he's
Very
still a good player now,
He's
and
still good, exactly.
I rate Moutinho. I very much rate Moutinho, but he's nothing on Luka Modric. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we're never going to get a player who's anything as good. I think Moutinho's the best we could get. We could
Maybe.
probably get at the time, and I was obviously we did get Dembele beforehand, but we needed another one as well. And Moutinho was serious. That's what AVB wanted. We didn't get him. We then hired Franco Baldini in the summer of 2013 to deal with the transfers because we are probably knowing that we're going to sell Gareth Bale for a record fee of 85 million, which we ended up doing. So we sold him, signing the magnificent seven.
This was a real shit show.
Yeah,
this was a real shit show.
Some of that was signing Chirichez, Chadley, Capu, Paulinho, Soldado, Lamella, and Ericsson. Where only really Ericsson for sure was a success. Other than that, it may be Lamella, but the other five were absolute unmitigated disasters.
I mean, in terms of Lamella, he's only a success because he's still at the club. You wouldn't call him a success in what he's actually produced on the pitch. There's moments there, of course.
Oh, no, you know what? You wouldn't call Lamella a success. It's whether you call him a failure or not is the question.
Yeah.
You wouldn't call him a success.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
And so the only real success was Ericsson in that six, and AGB was well documented again, saying a lot of the players weren't his choices. He tried for Willian, and he tried for other players as well, which we didn't get over the line, and the Franco Baldini turned out to be a bit of a disaster in that summer, and signing those 7 players, which 5 of them I think were out the door within 2 years. So that was a big failing of that summer. We then sacked AVB in December of that season in 2013.
Was it after he back-to-back 4-0 losses to Liverpool or something?
We just lost 5-0 to Liverpool. However, we were only 5 points behind outside top 4 in December when we did sack him, and we ended up giving Sherwood an 18-month contract.
Sherwood.
Why did we give him an 18-month contract? We knew he was never going to stay on to the end of the season. But we gave Sherwood the contract.
But giving Sherwood the role is basically the same as giving Mason the role. I know Sherwood had a bit more age on his side, but he'd never managed a game of football in his life before, and we've given him an 18-month contract. And
so now another situation where we're sacking a manager without a plan, and we're just giving him an 18-month deal.
He brought through Harry Kane, and it's all Sherwood's fault why Harry Kane, the player he is today.
He did get Adebayor playing, to be fair, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But giving him an 18-month contract seemed very odd at the time.
Yeah.
And even more, considering we sacked him within 6 months.
He was a rubbish manager. You could see what he did in Aston Villa.
He played Chadley at defensive mid, didn't he? Remember that? He did that a few times. We then in the summer approached Louis van Gaal, which was rejected by Van Gaal because he went to Man United. And then, so luckily enough, he rejected us because we ended up going for our second option, which was Pochettino. We ended up
third option because Frank de Boer was ahead of him.
I don't know if he was ahead. I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure he was because then Frank de Boer. Went to Everton the year after?
Not Everton. He went to Palace, but that was a while back. That was a while. That was like 3 years after. So I don't know if maybe we did. I remember he was more favourite, but I don't know if we actually approached him.
Okay.
Then we signed Pochettino. He wanted Musacchio from Villarreal, and he wanted Schneiderlin from Southampton. He ended up getting Fazio and Stambouli. For those two, so didn't get the guys he wanted. We ended up not spending much money actually at all that summer because we had such a big outlay on the 7 they didn't want to spend. So the only money we did spend really was those two and Ben Davis, which we actually gave them money plus Sigurdsson for Ben Davis and Vorm, which I remember.
We gave them money plus Sigurdsson for Ben Davis and
Vorm.
What a bad deal that is.
Awful. When Sigurdsson
left them for 50 million.
50 million a couple of years later. So that shows where we're at. And also we're on the brink of sacking Pochettino if it wasn't for a goal against Villa in the last minute, which got him a win.
Exactly. Pochettino can thank Tim Sherwood for that.
Exactly. We then, so he obviously had a season of promise, and then and then that following summer, we had a fairly decent summer, but over the next 3 years, we spent 100 million on Ng and Kudu, Janssen, Sanchez, and Sissoko.
Wow, that is bad.
Over 100 million on those players.
Who was the recruitment at the time? It wasn't Paul Mitchell. It was before Paul Mitchell.
Paul Mitchell left in 2017.
Yeah.
So he was responsible for Ng, Nkudu, and Janssen, and Sissoko, I guess.
So he was responsible for that, Paul Mitchell, then?
I'm not sure when in 2017. Did he leave in 2017? I can't remember actually. I think it might have been 2016. Paul Mitchell left, but instead of actually targeting serious players who can improve the first team, went for these young players who had potential. And except for obviously Sissoko, and who was a deadline day deal, and we were scrambling around.
Do you remember Newcastle fans, the Newcastle fans we speak to, Newcastle Fan TV, when we signed Sissoko, how happy they were? They were like, "Why have you spent 30 million on this guy?"
They couldn't believe it. So we signed them for a lot of money when we easily could have got a lot more quality if we just got 2 players instead of those 5 for that 100 million. And that was a big failing. We showed Sadio Mane around the training ground in the summer of 2016. He wanted to join Tottenham, but we only wanted to pay 25 million, I believe, or 27, and then he went for 35.
And you actually forgot in the Redknapp era, Redknapp and Eden Hazard were in a hotel room discussing coming to Tottenham. Apparently Eden Hazard wanted to come as well, and Daniel couldn't get it over the line.
No, that one, he wanted to come if we had Champions League football, and because
Chelsea got it because they won the Champions League and we finished 4th. Yeah.
So how we actually could have had Hazard, but that didn't happen. But
well, it's Levy's fault we didn't finish in the top 3 because he should have kicked on in that January.
It's true. In terms of so we ended up not getting Mane for 35 because we thought he was too expensive, but we ended up panicking and signing Sissoko for 30 on deadline day. So an extra
trumping
5 million
Everton to that
Mane.
signing.
So an extra 5 million could have got Mane. Look where Mane is now,
yeah.
And that was another massive failing. But look, when we pushed on that season, thankfully Pochettino.
We signed Sissoko as a winger.
Yeah, yeah. And thankfully, Pochettino continued to overachieve, going a whole season unbeaten. Our last season at White Hart Lane, and finishing second in the league. And then in that summer, we obviously moved to Wembley, so we moved out of our home at a time where we really if we would have stayed, people said we could have really pushed on.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember how against moving out I was at the time, and I was like, just stay at White Hart Lane, even if it takes building the stadium a bit longer, because I was convinced if we stayed at White Hart Lane for one more year, we had a genuine shot at the title, like a genuine shot.
But that didn't happen.
Yeah, and before that was all the madness with Archway Steel Metal and all that went on, all the madness that went on with building the stadium.
We don't know exactly what
Nobody knows what exactly happened, but
it's just coincidence.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a big fire when we needed that property.
Exactly. It's very much coincidence that the place went up in flames, and that's the only place that they couldn't buy. It's the only place that they couldn't put a purchase order on.
We then sold Walker for 50 million to Manchester City, replacing him with Serge Aurier for 24 million, so making a 25 million pound profit and promoting our second choice right back Trippier to first choice. So we went from Walker and Trippier to Trippier and Aurier. Then we couldn't hang on to Paul Mitchell, and we replaced him with Steve Hitchen in 2017. That was also a massive failure. In 2018, we announced, obviously moving into the new stadium, we announced the highest season ticket prices in the Premier League and I think in Europe as well, moving into the brand new stadium.
Exactly. We move into this brand new stadium, not one single trophy since 2008, and that is the only trophy in the whole Enic tenure. And we've got the most expensive seats in the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
Disgrace.
On the back of this stadium that we've taken loans out to pay for. We are in that summer. We are selling season tickets on the promise that we are going to be in the new stadium by September again against our Liverpool game, with full knowledge, with Spurs having full knowledge, the board having full knowledge that stadium was going to be delayed. Full knowledge it was going to be delayed. I remember at the time we went to look at the stadium. We're like, there is no way this is done by September. No way. I remember other people saying, "Oh."
Do you remember everyone's trying to make excuses like, "Oh, maybe we'll get in, and they're still going to be building it around and all this kind of stuff."
Yeah, and there was just no chance it was going to be done by September.
Yeah.
In fact, we had to wait till April.
Yeah.
For it to be done, even though they promised it was going to be done in
September.
And
they took interest-free loans off the fan base. Yeah. They made the fan base pay for White Hart Lane season tickets, and game by game, they would refund us for the games at White Hart Lane. They make us repurchase tickets for the game at Wembley for more or less the same price, and taking our booking fee as well for no reason whatsoever. Literally stealing money off the fans.
They literally charged us a booking fee after forcing us to rebuy tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, that is criminal. That is, how can you do that? Force the fans to rebuy tickets and take and charge a booking fee.
With the season tickets, they made us pay for the season tickets up front. with a promise to refund us the tickets, and they've refunded it game by game, basically taking taking an interest-free loan. Instead of taking it from the banks where they would have to pay interest, they take it from the fans, which made it completely interest-free, which was absolutely disgraceful.
Yep. Then also in that summer, we were struggling to sign players all summer because apparently we couldn't get any better than what we had in that window. We spent the whole summer courting Jack Grealish. With Aston Villa in big money situations at the time, they were apparently willing to accept a very low fee for Jack Grealish.
Like 5 million or something,
There's
15 million. 15, I think it was.
Some between, I think 10 and 15 and 20, somewhere in that ballpark. Look, 20 million at the time, even for Jack Grealish, is a very low figure. We knew the quality he had. He was one of the up-and-coming players in England at the time. We knew how good Jack Grealish could be. He was just starred for Aston Villa in the Premier League and the Championship. We ended up delaying the deal, delaying, trying to get the price as low as possible, trying to save every single penny that we could get from Aston Villa. And what happened? The end story is Aston Villa in the last minute got a new takeover, got new owners, and they weren't in financial trouble anymore. And all of a sudden, overnight, the value skyrocketed.
Well, the thing is that I think they agreed a fee. Spurs and Villa agreed a fee of whatever you said, between 15 and 20 million around then. And that, like you said, it was a complete steal for someone like Jack Grealish at the time.
We knew we were getting a good deal.
Remember that now he's worth between 80 and 100 million at the least. And you're saying, yeah, great. All right, we're going to get Jack Grealish 15, 20 million. Which was going to be our only signing of the summer.
Which even that wasn't a good
yeah,
enough,
even if it was just Jack Grealish, the fan base would have been up in arms because it was only Jack Grealish when we needed a bit more than that.
Because we'll be going backwards already from second to third. So we've already dropped back one place. We needed to really push on.
Yeah. So we have this deal agreed for Jack Grealish. And then the news starts coming out about Villa being cash-strapped and they're about to go under and all this kind of stuff. So Daniel Levy goes back and goes, all right, I'm only paying you 4 or 5 million and that is it. I'm not paying you anything more. And the next day they got taken over and we lose out on it.
We lose out on it. All of a sudden they say, okay, well, now the price is 30 million. And Levy's like, well, I was just about to sign him 15, so I'm not going to pay 30.
Idiot.
And that was it. And that was it. It was over.
Evolving with the super chat saying, are you heading to the protest on the 15th of May? You bet your ass I'll be there, man.
You bet, man. So then we actually didn't sign another player for another 18 months. So we went 18 months with no signings, having already moved
Premier
backwards.
League record.
Yep. And having already been moved backwards from second to third, we then had made no signings and ended up moving backwards again. Even though we had a decent start to the season, we couldn't sustain it with the playing staff, which needed a refresh. And we ended up having a horrific second half to the season and very nearly dropping out the top four, which thankfully Arsenal, I think, failing to beat Brighton on the penultimate game is what did it for us, luckily.
Yeah, but can you imagine a Premier League record, the only ever Premier League side not to make a signing in the whole of the summer transfer window?
And yeah, we did get to the Champions League final, and that's all. And I put that all
that,
down.
that masked over it.
I put that all down to Pochettino, though. Pochettino every step of the way overachieved. Every step of the way.
Yeah, and I think that the later on it got in his Spurs career, the more he overachieved,
and it got harder and harder to keep doing it.
Yeah, so that year we got to the Champions League final because our league form wasn't great that year, and it masked over everything. All the bad problems that were going on at Tottenham, that Champions League run masked over, and it papered over all the cracks, all of them.
Exactly. And Pochettino was on record saying that we definitely need more investment. We need to rebuild. We need fresh faces in the squad.
Exactly.
People. He kept saying it.
What's the point of having a nice big new house if you can't afford to put furniture in it?
We don't have nice furniture, something like that. That's what he said to Gary Lineker. And he kept hammering it home, but we fell on deaf ears. In the summer of 2019, we ended up selling Kieran Trippier without replacing him. We sold him for 20 million. We didn't even think about getting a replacement right back in.
And what Kieran Trippier said when he left was interesting. We still haven't heard what he meant, because he said, stuff has gone on at Tottenham. I can't say it now, but maybe one day in the future he will reveal what happened.
Yep. So that was the whole Trippier situation. Ericsson had 1 year left on his contract, and we asked for too much money for him from potential suitors. I think we demanded 50 million for Ericsson at the time, which meant because we failed to get Ericsson, we failed to get Bruno Fernandes as well, who was well documented to be in line to sign for us. And if we could agree a deal for him, but we never stumped up the money because we wanted to get Ericsson out the door first, and that never happened because we were asking too much money. Paulo Dybala. The deadline day deal, which never got over the line because we didn't want to pay. Supposedly, we didn't want to pay for the image rights.
But we ended up paying the image rights to sack Pochettino.
Exactly, and then sacking Pochettino in November after a fairly poor start to the season, leaving us in 14th. We sacked him and appointed, and instead of rebuilding the squad, we decided to appoint Jose Mourinho, who was tasked with taking this club to the next level with his mentality and whatnot. And despite the fact that we desperately needed a rebuild, and although we did break our transfer record for Ndombele in that summer, it just wasn't enough after 18 months of no investment. It just wasn't enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, the squad had already gone stale by then.
Exactly, and unfortunately, it wasn't just that. If that would have happened before, in that a year before, maybe this part isn't stale, and then only some parts need refreshing. But then by the time we did that, so many parts needed refreshing that you've given yourself too much to do, and yet again resting on your laurels and not progressing when you have the opportunity.
And you know that I think for me that is the kind of the biggest failing so far of the Enic tenure, of, you know, letting that great squad, that great team, that great manager go stale at this football club. That is the biggest failing in my opinion, because that is the highest we've been as a football club in the Premier League era. And to let that moment go, to let it go stale when it was so easy for us to push on. You know, the manager was saying it week in, week out what we need to do, and the chairman just did not listen to a word he was saying.
He didn't want to refresh. He thought he could keep overachieving and overachieving.
He thought he knew better. He
thought Poch could just keep overachieving with what he had all the time, and he didn't realise that he had to back him with everything he could, because, you know, we had a manager, one of the youngest, most progressive, better, you know, up and coming managers in the whole of Europe, and we just let him fall by the wayside. And because of it's all our own fault why Pochettino failed. It's all the club's fault.
Yeah,
definitely. And because it could have easily, if you would have backed him, it could have easily carried on and achieved more. We then had that January where Son and Kane were ruled out especially Harry Kane was ruled out for 6 months, and Tottenham didn't have a backup striker, and we had the whole of January to pick up a striker. We went around all the target men pretty much in Europe that were available. You know, Willie and Jose being left. Remember, it was like a case where like every week a new striker was being
every
left
day.
The new striker was being left out their squad because they're rumoured to be joining Tottenham, and we ended up getting none of them. Not one of them. We ended up getting Bergwijn, who wasn't really needed at the time. I mean, yes, he was a decent signing, but he wasn't exactly a...
he did well when he came in, didn't he?
Yeah, but he wasn't exactly priority, was he? We were desperate for a striker. Yeah. We had no striker for the whole season because Kane was going to be ruled out for the season before the pandemic came in. Then in 2020... so that, by the way, that really hit us hard. In that season, not having that backup striker, because for all those games, we didn't have a focal point and cost us big time. We then decided in 2020, after the pandemic hit, to furlough all our staff, or a lot of our staff, during a pandemic when you know, that was a very costly decision which had to be backtracked after a lot of fan pressure. You know, because the furlough wasn't supposed to be used by multi-million pound businesses like Tottenham Hotspur, who generate so much money from Premier League and all that kind of stuff. It was supposed to be for small struggling businesses.
Hiring Jose Mourinho.
I said how pointing Mourinho. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, appointing Mourinho, make him the second highest paid manager, or highest paid manager in the league. So instead of giving Pochettino a rebuild, they decided to overpay on a manager who had basically struggled in his last job.
They thought they could skip the rebuild and just bring in Mourinho and everything will be all right.
In what was a very much an ego kind of thing.
Ego and naive.
And so furloughing the staff was a massive PR error, because it wasn't meant for that kind of thing. That was backtracked. And then going on to the summer, yes, we had a few decent deals after being told that Spurs weren't going to have any money from a lot of journalists. It was a nice surprise that Tottenham actually splashed out a bit of money on the likes of Højbjerg and Reguilon and Gareth Bale and things like that. And we ended up getting a backup striker, Vinicius. It all seemed well.
Yeah, at the time we all thought it was a great summer, but now in hindsight we realised it was another summer of cheaping out.
It was actually, and also if you look back at our probably videos at the back end of the season in 2020, our number one priority, apart from a centre mid, was centre back. That was like one of our biggest priorities, and we got distracted by that because of Gareth Bale joining and Reguilon joining and those so many unexpected deals. We got distracted by the fact that everyone knew our number one priority was the centre back, and we never actually got that. Although we flirted with Skriniar, going out to meet him and his agent and stuff, we never got that deal over the line. We didn't want to spend the extra 10 million euros or whatever it was.
We haven't upgraded the defence since we signed Toby Alderweireld. We signed Davinson Sanchez since then and Joe Rodon since then. Both of them have not been upgrades on what we got already.
And then you also got to think we signed Doherty, and so we've gone from Walker and Trippier.
Ruben Dias was a target as well.
Ruben Dias was a target, and then we go from Walker and Trippier a couple of years ago to now Aurier and Doherty. So our second choice right back 2 years ago would have been better than our first choice right back now. So again, declining standards in the squad, and which are being which leads all the way back from the top, which is unacceptable. Then didn't upgrade the defence since 2015. We signed Sanchez for big money, which ended up not being the best deal, but I think you can't just blame Enic, because I think Pochettino was involved in that as well.
What about Bruno Fernandes and Jedson Fernandes?
Yeah, I mentioned Bruno, not getting Bruno over the line after
signing Jedson instead.
Eriksen. Signing Jedson on a 18-month loan and cutting that short by 6 months because he just wasn't good. More recruitment shenanigans. Then we have not upgrading the defence since 2015. That was shocking. When we had a core defence of Walker, Jan, Toby and Rose, though not pretty much we let the two centre-backs, one of them went on a free and aged badly. Toby as well was getting on a bit. Walker never been replaced adequately, and now we have a back four which is a shadow of that, and the quality is nowhere near as good as it used to be.
I can't believe we've let our back four go from the best defence in the Premier League to basically the worst. One of the worst anyway. You know, Rose and Walker in their pomp, Jan and Toby in their pomp, to now, what have we got? Reguilon, who you got to say was a good signing, but he's having a poor time of it at the moment. Right back situation, absolutely rubbish, and the centre back situation, absolutely rubbish.
Yep, absolutely spot on. We then did the absolutely despicable action of agreeing to join this Super League in a time during a pandemic where a lot of football clubs have been hit really, really hard. We did it behind the fans' backs, despite the fact that the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust had multiple meetings with the Tottenham board to discuss any sort of breakaway.
No, they don't.
They
don't discuss hypotheticals, though. They don't discuss hypotheticals.
They said they don't discuss hypotheticals, exactly. And despite putting the players' future at risk because they could be banned from international tournaments, and despite putting the future of Tottenham at risk because of potential punishments going forward, banned from European football, all these banned with the promise of £300 million a year from this European Super League, we decided to take the easy fix and the quick fix and the short-term fix and accept to join the Super League when clubs bigger than us, such as PSG and Bayern Munich, had the morals to reject that kind of idea, and we were on the brink of allowing English football or domestic football to die out because we were failing to make top four because of our own mistakes, and we didn't want to feel the consequences of that. So we wanted the get out of jail free card, which was to basically ruin the football pyramid, completely cut ourselves off in European football, and be in this European Super League for signing a 23-year contract, which was against the best wishes of the fans and probably the club overall, seeing as how things are panned out. And again, fan pressure and fan backlash won the day, and they had to overturn, but they weren't the first to overturn. And they are the only English club still yet to apologise for their involvement in the European Super League. 5 of the 6 clubs involved have publicly apologised, except for Tottenham Hotspur. So that shows where they're at the moment.
And their statement to us was no remorse in it whatsoever. You could just tell the pain of Levy losing us so much money in that statement. That's all you could tell from that statement. And all they are interested in doing is lining their own pockets at the expense of the fans, at the expense of the football club. And it's not on anymore, and we need to get these guys out of our club. We really do.
And finally, the latest in a long line of which we've been going for nearly an hour now of horrible decisions. Sacking Jose Mourinho 6 days before a cup final, having signed him pretty much with the explicit mission of winning a trophy in his first chance of being in a final and actually having an opportunity to win us a trophy. They sack him 6 days before the final. Rumours have been circulating why they sacked him, whether it's because of a clause in his contract they have to pay him more money if he wins the cup or whatever it is. They sacked him, putting a rookie, Ryan Mason, in charge for the cup final, and ultimately him making mistakes in the final and us losing 1-0. And Tottenham ended yet another season trophyless, and that now is 1 trophy in 20 years at the club, literally all culminating because of these series of horrific decisions that they have made throughout their tenure as board, on the footballing side, as a board, to really take Tottenham from they always give themselves a good thing in a good position, and they never push on from it. They always settle. They always like, okay, we're in a good position, we're going to just try and settle for this position. They never keep moving forward. It's always a 2 step forward, 3 steps back with Enic, and that's continually how it is. And I think sacking Mourinho just before the cup final, especially as Kane was saying how much preparation they were doing with that cup final, and then Rayson comes out after the cup final saying, well, we didn't have enough preparation time.
Exactly.
It's absolutely unforgivable.
They basically, everyone knows how much this fan base is dying for some silverware. Been the mockery of the Premier League since 2008, pretty much, with the lack of silverware, or even before then, because even 2008 was a long wait before that. So it was 1999 was the trophy before then. And, this fan base has been dying for a trophy. We bring Jose Mourinho in to win a trophy. That's why we brought him to this football club. And then, he gets us to a final. Whatever you think of Jose Mourinho, whether you wanted him out or not, because I was in the camp where I wanted him out. You know what I mean? Even if you want him out, you do not sack him 6 days before a cup final. The only reason they sacked him before a cup final was to save a few pounds, because it was cheaper to sack him then as opposed to if he would have won the competition. And basically what Daniel Levy and Enic have told us is, through that sacking alone, they have told us we'd rather save a few quid than have the best opportunity to win a trophy for you guys. That is what they've told us. And that is the facts.
And that's it. And that's pretty much all the way from 2001 leading to today, the series of bad decision-making from Enic and from Daniel Levy, which has led a lot of the Tottenham fans to turn on Daniel Levy and turn on the board. And I think that all has to be acknowledged. And people say, 1 trophy in 20 years is not only their fault because, they got to finals and semi-finals and stuff. But you got to realise these series of bad decisions constantly throughout their time has led to Tottenham never being. I know we're in a position we got to semi-finals, but we never had the quality in those big games to get over the line because of all these decisions that Enic have made. And you can't, when there's a constant theme of 1 trophy in 20 years, you have to look at the board at some point when there's a constant theme of it. It can't be every manager's the problem and every player's the problem. The board have to take some responsibility for how they've managed the team over the last 20 years. And I think that is a massive failing during their time at the club. And that's why we've won so little. And I'm not saying we have a right to win trophies as being Tottenham Hotspur when we should demand it, but we've put ourselves in good positions constantly and constantly fucked up the advantage constantly, and that is all down to the board.
It's not about having the right to win trophies, but it's about putting the club in the best positions to have the right to win trophies. And I think that, you're right, he does put us to a certain he always gets us to a certain step and then doesn't have the balls to kick on from there, and then ultimately we just go back to square one every time.
As I've always said with Enic, they would rather they would rather try and overachieve with less than try and be favourites for something. They never want to put us in a position where we're favourites. If we in 2016 or 2017, after finishing a season unbeaten in White Hart Lane, if we splash out in that summer on serious investment on key positions, we then become favourites that next year. But we never want to do that. We always want to skimp out. We want to get a cheap deal, and we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're favourites. Rather try and overachieve. And
Exactly.
That's consistently
We always want to be the bridesmaid, never the bride.
And then it all culminated in this accepting the Super League, which was quite frankly unacceptable. Unacceptable.
For me, there was no
point of view.
turning back after the Super League.
Josh King in the super chat says the biggest
Big up Josh King, by the way.
I love Josh King. He says the biggest theme in Enic's failing is recruitment. Hitchin is stealing a living. If we had Leicester's recruitment team, we would have won the league. Our success came from Paul Mitchell signings.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Recruitment's been a massive failing, absolutely massive failing. But Spurs always have a kind of profile of player they like to sign, and it's always someone who's young, who has potential, who
like
could
Louis
kind of grow.
Ryan Nelson.
Yeah, apart from then. And I think a lot of the time our recruitment's bitten us in the arse. So it's more often than not, unfortunately. That's what's culminated to. And I think Enic at this moment in time, as much as good they've done in getting us a stadium and all that kind of stuff, I think they're never going to be the board to allow us to move forward when we really have advantage in the playing stakes. Whenever we really have advantage, in the standings in the Premier League, and we never push on from there. We always like to kind of try and overachieve as opposed to really kicking on, and that's my biggest frustration with them. And that's why, and then as well, the mask was lifted with the European Super League, which is the main reason I'm fully Enic out at the moment. So those are the list of everything that we believe has been their biggest failings.
All right, so there you have it. Let us know in the live comments if we have missed out anything. We've got 950 viewers at the moment. It's surprising because I thought everyone that wants Enic out would smash that like button, but we've only got 243 like buttons. So if you are Enic out, if you want these parasites out of our club, do smash that like button.
Could have gotten Bruno instead of Gio, but no, they don't want to spend extra money. I went for a guy who'd been injured for months while Bruno had been smashing it out. If Enic do leave, who are we going to replace them with? Would you take a financial doping from rich Russian or Arabs?
Probably.
Carl Simpson says, I'm serious depressed now. Thanks, guys. You're welcome. Look, it needs to be detailed. I wanted
exactly.
it to be detailed.
We need to give out. We need to spit the facts, man, and that's exactly what we've done today.
Mm-hmm.
But,
absolutely.
Look, I think that is it for today. We have been spouting on for over an hour now of Levy failings and Enic failings since the beginning of their tenure. So make out of it what you will. Everyone, spam the chat with Enic out. Tell Talks with the super chat saying thanks for being the voice for the fans. Enic out. I mean, we can't speak for all fans. We can just speak for ourselves. But yeah. I mean, we're not the voice of the fans, are we?
Yeah, we look, it is what it is. We just thought we'd do a stream detailing a lot of the failings that we believe Enic have done during their tenure, despite some good things that they've brought, like the stadium. I think on the footballing side of stuff, there's been this catalogue of massive screw-ups from Enic and PR gaffes as well, which they've been a massive part of, and culminating into the decision which led Enic thinking it was acceptable to ruin the football pyramid for selfish reasons, and it was like Spurs fans had to be the mature ones to tell them, no, you don't do that. You can't do that to the footballing pyramid in the football world. We won't allow it. We won't allow you to ruin football like that and ruin the domestic league in that fashion, just so you get a bit of quick cash. And unfortunately, and that is the biggest failing of the Enic tenure, 100%. And I think we need to get them out because they do not care about anything but their own pockets.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching today. Do let us know in the comment section below if you have any more points that we have missed on the Enic tenure. Thank you, everyone, again for joining. Once again, like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.